Most men don't end up lost because they're weak. They end up lost because they never stop long enough to choose a direction. Welcome to the Man in Motion podcast. I'm Bob, and this is a show about what it means to be a man in today's world, navigating real life with strength, purpose, clarity. We talk growth, we talk responsibility, and the work of becoming without losing the core of who we are. This isn't about hacks. It's not about hype. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about awareness, grounded thinking, and choosing direction while you're already in motion. No excuses, ever forward. I don't think it's a secret when I say that life is not slow, especially for us men. There's constant demands, there's decisions, there's distraction, there's demand, there's responsibility, and it never stops. It never holds up for just a minute for you to catch your breath. And most men, we struggle with this. We don't talk about it, we don't mention it, we don't say it, but oftentimes we're just like, oh man, I need a minute. Just give me 1 minute. And that's the crux of the matter. See, we're not failing. We're overloaded and we're operating without any margin to work from. And that leaves us feeling stuck, reactive, and kind of like we're drifting through life. We're not really choosing direction. We're constantly moving. But are we actually getting anywhere? We've come to a place where reaction has replaced intention. And drift, it's comfortable, but it costs us that end we're seeking, that goal that we're working towards. And life comes down to this one simple thing. What is the difference between movement without direction versus intentional motion? Because motion alone doesn't equal progress. And realistically, sometimes motion is actually avoidance. Intentional motion at its heart requires the choice of a direction and accepting the responsibility for it. This podcast, it's not going to be about adrenaline. It's not going to be bullshit motivational spikes. If you're ready for some long haul work, steady, honest, measured, this might be something you want to stick around for. I see in a lot of men the same themes. It's the same story. The details shift from man to man. The names shift from man to man, but it's always the same thing. I'm so busy and I'm working on this and I'm working on that and I'm going here, I'm going there. And it's pressure. They're feeling pressure. They're feeling confusion, that quiet frustration. There's a lot of isolation and lacking in real meaningful connection, real meaningful conversation. And it's this, we don't get it. We don't understand it. We're not lacking effort because we're trying our asses off. But what it really comes down to is many men lack a clear framework for growth. And don't even get me started on the social media influencer nonsense, right? It's all these voices on Facebook and Instagram and whatever the flavor of the week is for social media, where everyone is selling an image, you're selling a lifestyle, or you're selling a shortcut or a hack, and everyone's trying to give you advice on the quick buck and how to get ahead. And we've come to this point where performance and profit matter more than depth, responsibility, and actual lived experience. We've got a million people telling us how to be men with the latest fad and the latest trend. And it's just so much noise telling us who we should be. And no one wants to stop and teach you how to think, and how to decide, and how to take that moment you need, and how to lead yourself well, and allow you to decide the man you want to be. There's a lot of the the alpha bro nonsense out there where it's motivation and get it done and you're going to do this in 30 days. And man, it's just not it. It's just not it. That's not lasting change. Motivation is bullshit. I'm going to tell you right now. Motivation is bullshit. Motivation is emotional and it's temporary. It fades with stress. It fades with time. And when was the last time you did something 300 times in a row and was as motivated to do it the first time as you did it the last? Discipline builds habits. It builds identity. It builds character. And these are the things that are going to hold and help you continue to build and grow when motivation is gone. And that's really the crux of what this show is going to be about. This is for men who are looking for ownership, not excuses. It's for men in transition, whether it's career or identity or fatherhood or loss or purpose or anything that places a man in a transition. And you got to be willing to do some work with this. This is not easy. This is not going to be simple, and it's not going to be quick. It takes time. Real lasting change takes time. And the last group of people that are really going to like this is men who are stagnant. They just feel like life is stale and they're tired of it. Who's not going to be very happy here? If you're looking for a victim narrative, you're probably going to look for the next podcast. If you're looking for blame culture, shortcuts, hacks, performative alpha bro masculinity, probably not going to be here. This show is really for men who are willing to take ownership of their lives. Not the men who have figured everything out, because that's not real. No one does. But men who are done outsourcing their responsibility. You're done blaming circumstance. You're done blaming people. You're done blaming systems or the past. It's for men in transition. If you've ever sat there and said to yourself, man, I should be further along than this, and then fill in the blank. First off, you're not alone. You're not broken. But I will say you are responsible for what comes next, but what happens next, what comes after now. This is where we start to get honest. This is where we start realizing that we have to take responsibility. Because life is hard, and that's not a new concept. That's not a hack. That's not a shortcut. But if you're willing to look honestly and take responsibility and do the slow work of becoming steadier and clearer and more grounded, you're in the right spot. And actually, I should clarify something else before I go any further. I'm not here as an expert. I'm not a guru, and I'm certainly not the guy that has life all figured out. I'm not interested in telling you how to live. I'm not trying to sell you answers that don't hold up under pressure. This show exists because too many good men keep moving without ever being taught how to slow down, without thinking clearly, or choosing deliberately. I've seen men lose themselves. I've seen what happens when that goes unexamined for too long. There are hard lines I will not cross here. There's not going to be hype. There's going to be shortcuts, and there's not going to be outsourcing of responsibility, because I'm not here to run your life. I'm not trying to be your mother. I'm here to help you see clearly. And then I'm going to get the hell out of your way and let you get to work. So the kind of work we're going to be doing here is not about staying busy or chasing this or productivity. We're not looking for the more culture. We're not optimizing life until you're exhausted and you've got 12 minutes to sleep. This is about learning to choose instead of react. It's about learning to steer instead of drift. You see, clarity which is something we're all searching for, is not a thing that comes from itself. It comes from commitment. It doesn't come from overthinking. We're not going to live in theory here. We're going to talk about decisions. We're going to talk about standards, and we're going to talk about following through. Growth is not something that's going to be called a phase. We will never say I'm in a growth phase, because we should always be growing. If you're not growing, you're dead. There's no 30-day transformations. There's no finish line here, because life doesn't stop, right? It's about figuring out how to adapt to life as it changes, but keeping your identity as the anchor. Your values should always be the point which you pivot around. Most people don't look at themselves very hard. And I'm not talking about in the mirror, although that's one place you can. Really look at themselves and who they are and what they believe and what they think and what they want. We don't look very closely at that, especially men. The only time we tend to do that is when everything's collapsing and falling apart. And then it's, what did I do wrong? But the reality is, most lives don't fall apart. They flatten and they get stagnant. Think about it. How many times have really this life has just imploded for you? It happens. It happens a couple times in a lifetime. It can. But the reality is, nothing breaks, nothing explodes, and it just keeps, life itself just keeps going on. Most men don't wake up one day and realize that they're lost. They just realize they've been tired for a long damn time. Which leads us to that sense of irritation. And it's irritation that's out of proportion. It's life feels dull, or you feel disengaged, disconnected. And then you have a hard time naming what you want, really what you want. This isn't pathology. There's no failure in this. This is just what happens when you don't stop and actually examine yourself. You confuse momentum with direction. And that confusion often means that your direction hasn't been chosen. That fog comes from movement without a clear sense of direction. But then there's the favorite line that I always hear. I love this one. Oh, I'm standing by and I'm waiting for more clarity. But it doesn't work like that. Confusion is the cost of not stopping to look and think and decide. See, most men, they don't consciously decide to stay where they are. They just keep going, because that's really what the system rewards. And that's not failure, right? It's just what happens when reflection never gets any space. When you never stop to think about where I am and where I'm going. What do I actually want? So I'm going to ask you a question here, and I don't want you to answer it right now. I'm not asking you to act, but I want you to notice what you feel when you hear this question, because this is an important question. Do you feel clear about where you're headed, or are you just caught up and busy getting there? Think about that. Think about that for a minute. Awareness will come first. Direction will come later. and we will get there together deliberately. So, to the ladies that are listening, I know you've endured me babbling about men for the last 15, 16 minutes, whatever we're running at this point. There's space for here for you as well. First off, if you've made it this far because you have a man in your life that means something to you, whether it's a father, a brother, a husband, a boyfriend, a friend, just a friend, cousin, whatever. If you've made it this long, it means you care very deeply about that man. And you want to understand him a little better. And maybe you think there's something here that he could use. Maybe you see this in him. There is space here for you. You are welcome here as well. But understand, we will be talking about men and how we think and how we react and what we need. Now, I encourage you to stay. To be clear, I encourage any of the ladies that have made it this far, I encourage you to stick around, because what you're trying to do is actually understand the man in your life. And by understanding him, you're going to have a shared language with him. And that shared language is going to reduce confusion and conflict. And this also, in listening to this, it's going to give you context for our issues and what we think. Men's mental health is the most ignored topic in healthcare. There's an entire men's mental health month. It's the month of November, and it's the biggest joke because nobody talks about men's mental health, just like no one talks about men's mental health month. So ladies, I applaud you for being here. A couple of tips just to start you off. We want understanding, we want respect, and we want appreciation. And when you approach us and you have this language with us, that you understand that you're going to learn from us here, that clarity of communication and respect, you can affect change in your man very quickly, very powerfully, and in a way that he's going to love you more for it. So again, you are welcome here, and I really encourage you to stick around. All right, let's talk about some nuts and bolts here. How this podcast is going to work. The first few episodes are going to be solo episodes. It's going to be me sitting here talking monkey at you. We're going to talk about some concepts. We're going to talk about ideas. I'm going to ask you some tough questions. And we're going to do a lot of heavy lifting in these first few episodes. We're going to set some groundwork. We're going to start building this. As time goes on, I'm going to add in guests and conversations and lighter topics. But I think starting off, there's some heavy questions that we need to deal with. And overall, the general concept is going to be practical frameworks over these theories and ideas, right? Because ideas are incredible and theory is amazing, but they're both useless without a way to practically apply them in your life. So everything we talk about is something that's going to translate into something you can act on. We're not going to do a lot of stories here. There's going to be some, but it's for illustrative purposes. It's going to serve understanding. It's not going to be for drama. It's not going to be for entertainment. It's not going to go into the victim experience, because that's not what we're here for. And again, there's no gurus, there's no heroes, and there's no pedestal. Every single person that's going to be talking in this podcast is no different than us. They don't have it figured out. Authenticity from practice and experience, no performance. If you stick around long enough, here's what I hope you will gain. Clarity under pressure, the ability to make better decisions that come from being rooted in your values and having a clear understanding of who you are and where you're heading, and not letting any sense of urgency cloud that judgment. Again, when you have that internal anchor, you know who you are. It's easier to make a decision that's going to be in line with who you are. You know, more grounded leadership. And to be clear, guys, it's not necessarily leadership of anyone. It could be leadership of yourself. You don't have to be a boss at work. You don't have to be a father. You don't have to be a supervisor. You don't have to be a leader of any sort. Leading yourself is where it all starts. And the biggest part is going to be momentum that lasts, how to sustain growth, real growth, meaningful growth, not this alpha bullshit, 30-day fix it and I'm going to be great. The goal is that forward momentum and growth becomes normal. It's your natural state, and it's not forced. We're looking at this for the long haul, right? It's not going to be a binge and forget. It's not going to be listen to the episode and I'm done and I'm out and everything's great. Real growth, real change happens through repetition and reflection. I invite you all to participate with me because progress is not going to come from passive listening. It's going to come from engagement. So we've come to the end of episode 0 here. Our purpose here was strictly just to give you kind of an orientation. Let you look at the plans of the house we're going to be trying to build. Everything up until this point has been about orientation. Episode 1 is where you're going to stop listening and you're going to get to work and you're going to start looking at life. Not to judge it, but to see it clearly. And we're going to begin the next episode with one question. It's a question you can only answer for yourself. Did you choose this life? Or did you just end up in it?